Hello, everyone. This evening, I'm just going to ramble on about a handful of my favorite GameCube games. In theory, I could talk about dozens of them, but I tried to be selective in terms of what I chose. But I think that you'll find these aren't very surprising picks, all things considered. So, to begin with, I have Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Now, this is actually my second favorite Zelda game. My first favorite, or number one, is Majora's Mask. But I think that Twilight Princess has a really quintessential traditional application of, the classic Zelda formula. The dungeons, the set pieces are all just immaculate. And I always refer this game to people when they sort of ask, what game within the Zelda series is sort of the best to get a sense of traditional Zelda? And I always point them to this one. It is a shame that there is no Switch port of the HD version as of yet. I don't think there ever will be. It is a bit of a shame. I think it's quite necessary. I will say this game was somewhat criticized heavily at release, primarily due to it being maybe a little bit too derivative of Ocarina of Time's formula. But I think it, you know, paid an homage to that framework, but still had its own essence. Um, One factor of that is actually Midna, and I can't imagine a better companion character or character in a Zelda series, period, within the Zelda series, period, other than Midna, as she had a full character arc essentially from beginning to end, and she is forever memorable because of that. So, Midna is best girl. Um, if she wasn't in this game, I don't know if it would even rank as highly in my mind. I also have to say that I think the art direction, even though some people might have found it a little dull after Wind Waker, I think has the best iteration visually of Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf. They have such a regal quality to them. And I think Twilight Princess Zelda is just the best designed Zelda. I will take that to the grave. I don't think they'll ever do a better design of Zelda than what they did within Twilight Princess. So, on to the next. This one, I think, is a little controversial. Starbucks Adventures. Now, this game, if the camera would focus, oh well. Now, this game wasn't really what people had in mind with a Star Fox game. For me personally, I didn't go in with any established notion or bias as to what a Star Fox game was supposed to be, because this was this and one other Star Fox game were my first exposure to the Star Fox series. So I didn't really grow up with it per se. So I played this game with an open mind, and I found it to be a very visually impressive game for its time, and especially with the water rendering. I mean, the fur and water rendering. I think this game was like top of its class at the time, at least on the GameCube, in terms of just pushing the system to its limits graphically. So you might say, well, if all you're talking about are visuals, it must be a pretty crap game otherwise. And no, I don't really think so. I just feel like it's one of those games where, you know, because it's all on foot and you're not doing very much in the air, it can come across as, being derivative of Zelda. But I think the addition of Crystal was a really great decision. I think she's been a character that really could benefit from more exposure. And, as an aside, I really think she should have been in Smash, but that's just my personal opinion. Yeah, I thought this game was a great adventure. I think it was supposed to be another IP and not a Star Fox game, but overall, um, despite a bit of backtracking and a bit of a slog in some of I think the force point temples and what have you, um, I thought it was a pretty great game. I consider it to be a game I would come back to every now and again. I think it was overhated, but I'm coming from a perspective of someone who had no notion as to what a Star Fox game was supposed to be growing up. So you can just call me ignorant as a result of that. But yeah. Now, in terms of Star Fox games that I played, well, there's this and Star Fox Assault. And I preferred Star Fox Assault to this, actually. I just thought it was a snappier experience, more to the point. But I don't know. I love kind of ancient, prehistoric, I guess dinosaur esque aesthetics. And this game obviously fit that mark. So it's a shame it just seemed to really leave people a bit polarized. But next, maybe not too much of a surprise, Luigi's Mansion. I think Luigi was always meant to be a character to have his own standalone adventures. Um, Now, when I played this, it was after Mario Sunshine, and I was a bit behind on playing GameCube games when they were new. I would kind of just play a lot of them quite a bit after they released. But, going from the fluid, responsive gameplay of Mario Sunshine to the more grounded, I suppose, slower paced gameplay of this was a bit of a contrast, but it works in its favor. I thought it was a very atmospheric and fun game, and it was a yearly tradition to play this around Halloween. That's just kind of a family friendly, game to indulge in. I did find it a bit short, but I mean, this game more or less spawned an entirely new characterization and love of Luigi that still resonates to this day. And Luigi always deserves as much respect as he can get, because I know it's quite a joke to see him as just, playing second fiddle and having less merit than Mario, but I'm all for more games featuring Luigi, either prominently or as a main character. Now, this one I think is a bit underrated and is desperately in need of a follow up game. Beautiful Joe 2. Uh, since we got the Okami sequel announcement recently, I would love a Beautiful Joe 3, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But if it did, then that would be something to make my year. I would love a Beautiful Joe 3. But, I loved this kind of whole era of gaming, seemed to just love, popping colors, especially on the GameCube, vivid, eye catching, popping colors that, you know, are really stylized. I just love the comic film esque aesthetic of this game. And I think this just took everything from the first Beautiful Joe and amped it up and just made it more enjoyable. Um, I loved playing as Sylvia and Joe, and I think that both of them together were an interesting duo. I just wonder what characters would be featured in a third game, if there ever was one. Of course, Joe. I'm not sure about Sylvia or Captain Blue or anyone else. But yeah, funnily enough, this game I was exposed to this game from a demo kiosk. If you remember, being kids going up to the demo kiosks in Walmart or Kmart when it existed, and just playing these games and feeling like you had to buy them because they looked so cool. This was one of those games that caught my eye, and I bought it solely based on a demo that I played of it. Next, Um, this game needs no introduction. Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now, yeah, normally when we take games that are adapted from a TV show or a movie, the end result is just abhorrent, horrible, inconceivably bad. But this was a fantastic game, and I think to this day, it's one of the more successful efforts in taking an established IP that wasn't normally a video game and making it into one. Um, this game is just a fan favorite. And yeah, I just remember having a blast playing this game. And none of the other SpongeBob games really capture the essence of this one to me. Um, but of the available characters to play as, I actually preferred playing as Patrick for some odd reason. No particular reason. But I remember buying this game totally at random, not thinking anything of it. I thought it was a SpongeBob game. How it's going to be horrible. And I played it for hours. And I come back to this game here and there. I really just think that, and the next game after this is kind of going to follow suit with this. But, you know, when you really care about the source material, you can make a good game. And I think that this certainly proves it. Next is actually a bit of a similar context. This Innocent Run. Believe it or not, I rented this game 7 times before buying it, which sounds insane. But I rented this game 7 times. I don't know what possessed me to do that, but this is it's a faithful adaptation to the show, as everyone knows by now. But man, I played this game for hours and hours. I could not get enough of it. Um, back when Blockbuster was a thing, this game was always on the shelf. So I said, let's rent it and see what we can do with it. And then I'd return it and rent it again and return it and rent it again. This is the only game I've ever done that with. I don't know why, because it's not my favorite GameCube game. It's among my favorites, but yeah, I had a fixation on this game for some reason. And growing up, I actually made a good friend over this game too, because we both loved the Simpsons show when it was still good. I think maybe it's gotten better recently, but I don't know. But we loved the show and we loved the game, so a friendship was forged over this game. I remember my favorite level in this game were actually Lisa's levels with the boardwalk and the beach. I can't remember the exact name of the level, but the vibes were immaculate, and I loved the music that played driving around with Lisa. Um, so yeah, I did play The Simpsons Road Rage growing up. I wasn't a big fan of it, but this one is the Simpsons game, if any. Next is another game that, like Star Fox Adventures, not for the same reasons, was kind of met with some strange receptions just due to some preconceived notions as to what the game should be. Though in this case, it's more so due to art direction and not so much just due to the overall gameplay style. And it's Wind Waker. I remember having some friends that really thought this game looked strange and very cartoon-like. For me, I thought the game looked stunning growing up. Again, like Beautiful Joe 2, I played this game at a demo kiosk and I was blown away by how crisp it looked. Just the colors, the vibrancy, the everything about it just felt like it was really refined. It felt like just a new era of GameCube gaming. I don't know what it was, but this game just always felt very special to me. A mixture of a well done, surprisingly mature story, given the aesthetic, with the art direction, the gameplay fluidity. This game was like just a blend of creativity and passion. And to this day, I think it's still one of the better looking games to have been released. Similar to something like Okami, the visual styling is very easy to recognize. If you show someone a picture of this game from a distance, they'll recognize it immediately. There's no mistaking it. But yes, also, I think this game had my favorite Ganon, at least in terms of characterization. My favorite design of him was within Twilight Princess, but the favorite characterization resides within this game. I just love how he seemed to have his justified perspective and motivation, especially towards the final battle where he talks about coveting that wind. It really made him feel like he had a reason for doing what he was doing. So that is my favorite Ganon. Um, Not necessarily design, but just the characterization. You know, he was really out there punching Link, attacking rascals, kids. He didn't care at all. He was a man on a mission, and if you get in the way, if you're a kid, he doesn't care. You're going to get hurt. But man, this was one of those games I loved playing so much growing up. Um, I can't imagine the GameCube library without it, to be honest. The selling was a bit of a slog, but it was fixed with, of course, the Wii U version. Um, but yes, other than the Triforce Hunt, I think the game was almost perfect. This game, well, you just know what it is. Take a guess. It's my favorite GameCube game. It's a lot of people's favorite GameCube game. And it spawned a long lasting legacy that is still upheld today in the tournament scene. Smash Melee. Now, I don't know why I have this number one on here. I used to a long time ago have a little label printer, and I would slap these labels on anything. So I put number one on here, I guess to emphasize that it was my favorite game. I don't know why I did that. But yes, it is very much number one. It is just, it was a stunning leap from Smash 64. And I swear to you, I have never been so obsessed with a game in my life than I was with Melee. Funnily enough, I didn't play this until 2003. I didn't play it at launch. So, all things considered, I was a bit of a late start to playing this, but it was just so much fun playing it at parties, playing it with friends, with my brother, cousin. I mean, I couldn't get enough of this game. I loved the adventure mode. I loved the trophy collection. The event matches were memorable. And, um, I think my favorite character that was unlockable was actually Mewtwo for some odd reason. It was always actually kind of scary to have the new character challenger approaching warning pop up, but at the same time, it was fun because it was a new character. But yes, to this day, um, I guess this would be my second favorite Smash game. I really do hope that if there's another Smash in the future, that it maybe adopts a bit of the gameplay from Melee and that it's just a little bit faster. But you don't, no one has to cater to my interests really. Next, this is a bit of a short one to mention, but Monkey Ball 2. Much like Smash, Melee, very fun at gatherings. This camera's becoming a problem at gatherings and at parties. The minigame selection was really great, and I loved how the story mode actually felt like it had some substance to it. Uh, I really, really loved challenging myself in this game to try to finish up levels quickly, but some of the levels were very hard and borderline impossible to do without trying about 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 times. I think one of the levels around was it the clock tower. Um, it was just luck based for me, but this game was a really chill, fun game to play. I liked all of the mini games except for I can't remember the name of it. The one where you are flying and you have to land on targets to get points. It always seemed like I could never land accurately. I just didn't care for that one. But the racing mini game, my favorite one. Yeah, this game has always been very charming, but I haven't actually purchased I believe there was a repackaging of this game for the Switch or a collection or what have you. But I only have this one. The first Monkey Ball I don't have in possession anymore. So up next is Star Fox Assault. Before anything else, I will say this game had some fantastic multiplayer fun. Kind of reminds me of, Metroid Prime 2's multiplayer. Not, and that it's the same style, but it was just surprisingly very fun. But this game's multiplayer, the music, the weapons you could grab, it was chaotic fun. My brother would always, I believe it was some kind of a rocket launcher weapon or power up, and he would just blast me to smithereens. I didn't have a hope of ever really winning, but this was a fun game overall. I loved the on foot and the missions in the R Wing. So it felt like maybe a game that was trying to be more faithful to the Star Fox essence more so than Star Fox Adventures. But independent of that, I actually liked this game a bit more than Star Fox Adventures. I thought it was just snappier. It got right to the point. And again, it did feature Crystal. So, um, other than that, I think the single player within this was actually a bit short. It would have benefited from being longer. But this game is on my ranking simply because um, of the multiplayer, primarily. I feel like my camera's giving out. It shouldn't be that hard to focus on something that simple. But yes, I don't know if many people even talk about Star Fox Assault anymore. It seems like it just gets forgotten. But it has some pretty good music too. I loved the composition of Wolf's theme in this game. It was just legendary, very well done. Um, so that's really that. And last here, again, I could talk about many more games. I'm only going to talk about the ones I have in my possession currently. There are some that have been lost over the years or borrowed and pretty much stolen. They may as well have been. Last is Mario Sunshine here. This game I think was kind of polarizing for a lot of people. It seemed like it was one of those games that people either really loved or they just hated. I don't know why. Is it the island aesthetic, the gameplay, the lack of variation in the level design? I'm not sure. But I personally really love the cohesive island aesthetic. It made it feel like all of the levels were a part of the same locale, and it made it more immersive. You know, the vacation vibes were immaculate. And on top of that, I really did like how Bowser and Bowser Jr. were characterized in this game. I loved Flood, even though you could apparently cheese some things with the hover function. But, the secret levels were enough to make you want to pull your hair out without Flood. So they showed you how much this game benefited from having Flood as a mechanic. Uh, my favorite level in this game, I can't actually recall the name, which I guess, is kind of telling. Like, well, the game sucks, so of course you can't remember. But no, this is a great game. I love Mario Sunshine. It was the level in the hotel after you fight this strange manta ray boss on the beach. But yes, that was my favorite level. Now, I don't like this as much as Mario Galaxy, but I don't hate it. It's just, I think it's a really great game that has an aesthetic that I don't know if Nintendo will ever really replicate this specific kind of aesthetic again. I know that beach and island aesthetics are very common, but Mario Sunshine just kind of had a certain vibe to it that felt a little bit unique. On top of all of that, my first exposure to this game was actually from a Toonami review. Tom reviewed this game and really liked it. So I thought, oh, there's a new Mario game out. I guess I better play it. So for those of you who remember Toonami and still think fondly back on that, they would do game reviews sometimes and talk about various things. And Mario Sunshine was among those games. So it's not my favorite Mario game, but it's among my favorite GameCube games for what it's worth. I will say two honorable mentions that I don't have in my possession would be Mario Kart Double Dash. And also, aside from that, I also recall, I'm trying to think what would be the second honorable mention here because there have been many GameCube games I played. I suppose Pikmin. Yes, Pikmin. I don't have it anymore, so I don't have it to show or really talk about much. But if I had them, I guess I'd be physically showing them, but I don't. But aside from that, that's really it. I mean, obviously, there are many more GameCube games that could fit a favorites list. I try to be really selective because otherwise I would just ramble for about an hour and a half. Next, I'll probably either talk about my favorite PS2 games, or PS3 games, or DS, or Wii. I've got a lot of games lying around. There's some right over there on the island counter. They're just sitting around. I guess I'll get around to talking about them eventually. Thanks for listening, and hope you have a good day or evening